Open your eyes.
If you are wondering why everything going on in the world feels so terribly off, then you have come to the right place. A veil has been put over the eyes of humanity. Evil people in high places have been hiding the truth in plain sight and building a false reality on lies and deception for far too long. And now, their time is coming to an end. It's time to fight back, to wake up, and to begin an uprising. Now is a time for judgment.
This is a time for judgment. Welcome to today's show. I was working on a video. I wanted to talk more about the egg shortage as well as the egg price. I mean, how deliberate this is pretty, I don't know if there's been many things this obvious as to what they're trying to do at this point. Whether it's trying to get certain things in your body or this massive food shortage and these spike in prices that we're seeing. And I was working on something with the chicken feed because we're hearing more and more people having chickens that can't lay eggs. How convenient. They're putting stuff in the food, the chicken food, the feed for the chicken, which is no different than they do to us with stuff they put in our food. And then, conveniently men and women suddenly can't have babies anymore. And obviously that doesn't just tie into the food. It ties in what's coming down from the sky. But as I was working on it, a subscriber by the name of Teresa on the website at timeforjudgment.com, I want to thank her for posting this because this is great. This is how you start seeing all of this stuff, where you start seeing this consistent pattern of these people who are involved in all these agendas. And you start saying, So Teresa posted this article from Bill Gates in 2013 on the website about how convenient, again, now that 10 years later, we're seeing this, why Bill Gates is investing in chickenless eggs. Oh, how convenient, chickenless eggs. So again, controlling the food source, what does that mean? Well, it means that they control you. So in other words, if you're somebody and you're like, you know what, I'm going to stay off the grid. I'll start chickens, I'll make eggs, I'll start farming on my own. They want to make sure you can't do that so that they can control you. It's pretty clear to see. So what are they doing? Well, they're doing stuff to the feed, and then they're telling you, hey, it's not good to have chicken. It's not good to have eggs. We need to have chickenless eggs, just like it's really bad to have meat all of a sudden. It's very unhealthy for you. We hear about the World Economic Forum pushing it on us. Oh, it's really bad for you to have meat. We can make something that tastes better. We're going to grow it out of mixing chemicals together in a petri dish. Enjoy. And then people out there are like, well, I'm vegan. I don't eat that stuff anyway. Well, guess what? The plant-based foods, eventually, you're not, a lot of people are struggling to even grow their own vegetables on their home because of this crap they're dumping from the sky. People have to build like greenhouses and stuff to farm because the chemical warfare is so bad. And again, we know the warfare on the fertilizer, which they've been doing with the Monsanto, all this stuff that's been going on. It's so obvious to see at this point. But let me show you about this chickenless eggs because you'll see this guy talking about, oh boy, it's unsanitary. Chickens, we need to have chickenless eggs, and this needs to be the future because, again, all food needs to be controlled and all water needs to be controlled by them. They're going to ration people down and portion people out, and they're going to cause worldwide starvation. They're telling you all we've heard about, right, and over the last couple of years is about starvation in third world countries and things like that. Well, they're trying to turn America into a third world country, and of course, all the stuff that's going on is their fault. They're the ones who were behind it. But take a look about the chickenless eggs, ladies and gentlemen.
This omelet was made with plants. Hampton Creek Foods is a high-tech startup doubling as a food company. And like most startups in the valley, disruption is the name of the game. The $9 billion industry they're after? Eggs.
When you talk to big food companies like Kraft and General Mills and Kellogg's and Nestle, and you say, why are you using eggs? What you'll hear is, they aerate my cake, they bind the cookie, they provide good mouthfeel or taste. What you don't hear is, I'm obsessed with using a chicken egg.
So what's the matter with my scrambled eggs right now?
They come from crazy places. Chickens are in cages. We all think that is nuts.
This kitchen/lab/office space is full of tech geeks, cooks, and of course, biochemists.
92% of the world's plants haven't even been explored for their applicability in food. So we dig down deep into these plants and we see, can it coagulate, can it bind, can it aerate, all these amazing things we can do even better with plants.
Tastes exactly like eggs.
Hampton Creek's R&D team has identified 11 plants that have the functional capabilities to replace eggs.
Plant-based foods are not without their own challenges.
It is hard to figure out the exact plants that will enable you to have a delicious cookie or a cookie dough or mayonnaise or even scrambled eggs.
All products Josh and his team are trying to replicate sans chicken eggs. Their first product to hit the market is just mayo.
I've never made mayo before.
Engineered mayonnaise could be Hampton Creek's first golden goose, making them not just an ingredient manufacturer, but also their own brand.
If you don't have an egg in mayonnaise and you try to pour it on a turkey sandwich, you're going to get this syrupy, disgusting, liquidy-like substance. So we have to identify plants to actually give you a nice, creamy mayonnaise.
Over the next 12 months, the company is trying to keep up with the big boys, amping up production from 80,000 jars of Just Mayo to 3.2 million.
These Fortune 500 food companies, they actually stand to gain from your company, but who stands to lose here?
The global, conventional egg industry. It's that industry, inefficient, bizarrely unsustainable industry, that we're going after with full throttle.
So they go on to say the egg in this article for 2013, the egg of the future. How convenient, right? 10 years ago. The egg of the future may not involve a chicken at all. In fact, in the high-tech food lab at Hampton Creek Foods in San Francisco, the chickenless egg substitute has already been hatched. We're trying to take the animal totally out of the equation. So they want to get rid of the animals because they tell you that, oh, we're not going to be able to feed everybody. We're not going to have enough room for the animals. That's one of the excuses they're using in addition to climate change, because cows fart and they breathe, and apparently, and slaughterhouses are causing climate emissions when it doesn't cause anywhere near what it costs these people to fly in their private jets across the country one time, or to Davos. But they tell you that because they go, well, there's no room, right? And that's why they have everybody crammed into cities, like I constantly talk about. And they want you to think, oh boy, look around, there's nowhere to farm. We can't have chickens anymore. We can't have cows anymore. We need to have everything grown in a laboratory. There's no carbon emissions coming out of there. And of course, the only way you're going to be able to get food is by coming to us, which means you're going to have to bow down to us. You're going to have to take the mark, and you're going to have to be one with our beast system. So they want to eliminate animals totally out of the equation. Hampton Creek's substitute product is called Beyond Eggs. And again, where have we heard this in the last 10 years, right? Beyond Meat. It's made from bits of ground up peas and a few other ingredients, and it's attracting the attention of high-tech investors, including Bill Gates. If you listen to my story on All Things Censored, you'll hear that it's pretty hard to distinguish between cookies made with Beyond Eggs and those made traditionally with real eggs. So that's one of the ways they push it, right? You won't be able to tell the difference, but where are you going to get it is the point. They don't want you to be independent of their system, okay? Lots of people who are independent of their system rely on water sources of their own, whether it's streams, rivers that are nearby, and people do, or their own well water, like the Amish do, they rely on farming and doing this stuff on their own. And why do you think we've seen, like, the Amish people, all of a sudden the government's going after them, closing their farms, saying it's unsanitary? Because nobody's going to be independent. You're not allowed to, the only food you're going to be allowed to eat is the crap that they grow in a lab, which is going to contain you know what. Okay? It's probably going to contain fetus. It's probably going to contain graphene, right? Can't really say that word because that's one of the big no-nos that they don't want you to know about. And it's going to be something that you can only get from them. That is part of the reason why. Control the food source, control the people. Where are people going to turn to food and go get food if nobody can independently grow food? So they want to get rid of all. They know that they're destroying farms on purpose with creating droughts, with weather warfare, but they're also making it very difficult for people to farm independently. Remember that one story I did? Some of you may not, but community farms. So they want you to register your farm, even if you have a farm in your backyard that's like a quarter of an acre and you're growing tomatoes. They want you to register with the government. Why? Because when they do this stuff, they want to know exactly who's farming and who's not. And they want to take it away and shut it down. And come and say, well, you're not sharing your tomatoes with other people. We're going to take control of this. We're going to take your tomatoes and disperse it amongst the people. But in reality, they'll just be destroying your crops and destroying whatever you have because they don't want you to be able to do it. So all the problems that farmers are having are being done on purpose, right? I mean, food and water are the most important thing to survival, right? Let's be real. Because you can't live without water and food. You could die pretty quick without water, especially. right? We know that. That's quote unquote science. But how convenient that because of the climate, that comes above the food. So instead of saying, well, aren't we all going to die of starvation? Shouldn't we not worry about the climate, number one? We should probably worry about food and water. No, instead they're going around in the Netherlands, New Zealand, all these places, farmers are getting shut down. And then the farmers are going, well, I can't even pay now for my land. I can't afford my tax because they're taking my livelihood away. And the government's going, yep, and we're taking over your farm. That's the reason people like Bill Gates own so much farmland. That's the reason China can come here and they give them farmland, right? And then they create the illusion of there's way too much cattle, there's way too many chickens, we need to shut it all down because it's not sustainable. So all of a sudden in the history of humanity, farming is not sustainable. Farming with animals. Chickens are not sustainable. I mean, this goes back how far with chickens? Can we possibly imagine people were eating eggs? But now it's suddenly, oh man, it's not sustainable because there's too many people. Yet when I cover things like the World Economic Forum, what do I show? Well, I show them talking about certain areas of the world that are going to be completely shut down because of droughts. They seem to know this stuff in advance. They say, oh, by 2070, even though I don't think we'll be here, like, oh, these areas in Africa and South America and the UK will be uninhabitable. And nobody's suspicious. Why all of a sudden is this area uninhabitable? Oh, well, because the Earth's warming up. Oh, the Earth's warming up. Last time I checked, it wasn't 175 degrees in New York City or Chicago. Was it? Then maybe some of us would be like, okay, whoa. But see, they don't have the technologies to make the Earth that hot. And there's a reason that they're not doing global cooling anymore, that they switched to global warming, because they realized they weren't able to sustain that. They weren't able to create an ice age the way that they thought that they probably could. Because they'd have to have, an immense amount of capabilities to do that, where it's much easier to create droughts and steer storms away from crops and do that type of stuff, which, again, has been going on for 100 years almost at this point. At least in the 40s and 50s, they were working on this tech. And of course, we've heard the famous quotes from JFK and others talking about weather control, weather modification, weather manipulation, right? But no, they're not doing any of that stuff. So anyway, back to the story here, because again, what we need more of is fake stuff. So what do? Well, they all of a sudden say that there's a bird flu and they kill off all the birds. Just like last summer when we saw 10,000 cattle flipped over in a field. Nobody was suspicious. They're like, oh, it's hot. Oh yeah? When's the last time you heard about cattle flipping over because it was 100 degrees? They can survive in that. Farmers know how to take care of that, right? Clearly, and they all were flipped over upside down as if they got euthanized or something else. Okay? But nobody was suspicious then. Then we get this, when we have all this stuff with baby formula shutdowns, all of these things over the last year and a half that I've covered as far as factories and manufacturers shutting down, airplanes flying into it, burning to the ground with no, does anyone know what happened, what caused it? We don't know. We just know it burned all the food down, and now we have a more food shortage, especially a meat shortage. That's very convenient. And then we have the bird flu going around, and they tell you that this is normal. Oh, the bird flu, right? And then we hear all of these independent farmers who have nothing to gain from going on social media talking about it, saying, this is really strange. My chickens are not laying eggs. Normally, my chickens will lay multiple eggs a day or every other day. Now my chickens haven't laid eggs in months, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months. And what happens when the government doesn't address it? And people out there go, well, that's just a conspiracy. So it's a conspiracy suddenly to have chickens that don't lay eggs? It's actually not a conspiracy. Something's actually wrong. And what's the other thing, like I said earlier, that we noticed? Oh, how come so many human beings are not able to have babies anymore? Oh, boy, it couldn't be something you're putting in the food. I mean, I know there's multiple reasons why men and women are struggling to have babies. There's so many attacks going on the human beings' bodies that it's pretty clear to see that something's up. But again, when statistics come out of, oh man, look at the rate of men and women having babies, and it's like 75% less than it was 20 years ago. Does anyone want to be suspicious? Does anyone want to be suspicious as to why so many people have to do IVF? Which is like, having to go through a process to have a baby. They have to take the egg and the sperm and do all this stuff that I don't really understand or know about. But I know a lot of people have turned to IVF because they're unable to get pregnant. You never heard this 30 years ago? Ask, if you have grandparents who are alive, ask them. Or your parents, if they're in their 60s or 70s, ask them. They'd be like, this is unheard of, right? You might have known somebody who might have struggled, like a person. Now it's like 7 out of 10 people are like, yeah, we've been trying forever, right? I read stories, I see stuff, I have relatives, and like, oh yeah, you know, and I'm just like, shh. I'm like, well, it's pretty obvious why you're not having kids. Well, they can do the same type of thing now to chickens, because why? Why are they hell-bent on chickens? Why do they want it? Because they know it's an independent way for you to farm. It's probably going to be a lot harder. Say you live in a, you know, you have a small house or wherever you might live, right? You have a yard. Well, you're not going to be able to have a bunch of cattle in your yard probably unless you have lots of acres. And then, you got to go through the process of slaughtering all that stuff, whether it's pigs or cows. But chickens is very easy and sustainable for people to survive on. In fact, one house, if you live in a development, if you have one house that has a chicken coop, say they have like 6 chickens, they'd be able to provide eggs for everybody and help everybody survive through a food drought and a food shortage. They would. And they don't want that. So they have obviously gone to war with our food supply. And then they just blame it on boogeymen over and over. And everybody just ignores it because they're too distracted by nonsense that's being created by the government to distract them, instead of the main thing, which should be food and water, right? Oh, conveniently, a bird flu during a food shortage at the same time when we had a fertilizer shortage and a railroad shut down for a temporary period of time. And we had all these manufacturers burning to the ground, and we had baby formula not available. I mean, how many things does it take? What is the old saying? How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop? Well, how many times do you need to get slapped in the face to wake up and realize what's actually going on? Apparently the answer is like a million times. It's like that, if anyone saw those guys in like a face slap competition, which is just completely insane. I mean, literally, you need to get punched at this point, if you aren't woken up, I don't know how many more times you need to get hit in the face to see what the government's doing on purpose. The Democratic government is a hijacked government of sellouts and puppets. I am not a Republican. I am not a Democrat. I believe both sides are. But the difference between the two is that the Democrats can get away with openly bringing in communism and destroying everything in this country, but then showing up and saying, we have cop problems, we have racism problems, we have LGBT, all these problems, and luring people in because they're emotionally weak, instead of seeing that while that's going on, which is all staged, they're deliberately sabotaging our way of life to make it worse. And letting people cross the border and all this other stuff, letting fentanyl in. I mean, it's unbelievable. Any other regime, if this was legit, would have been impeached. I've seen liberals and they're like, well, impeach Biden for what? Do you remember Watergate? I mean, compare Watergate to some of the stuff they claim is going on with Biden and the laptop. And again, who believes that stuff really? Nobody. I mean, I don't really. But just say, okay, well, that's the story that's out there. Then shouldn't we be impeaching these people? Shouldn't we see what they're doing with our tax money, giving it to another country when our tax money is supposed to fund our country? This is just basic, republic, democracy, whatever they want to call it. But no. So it's being done on purpose. The Democratic Party is a complete sellout party. They're literally setting us up to be sacrificed. They are extremely dangerous, they're tyrannical, and they say the same stuff about the other side, which again, all of it's true because they're all working together to cause this, in my opinion. But it's insane what they're openly getting away with out in the public. Like, they're not hiding this stuff. They're not telling us about the food. I mean, the mainstream media is not covering a lot of the food shortage stuff. But when you piece everything together and see what's going on, you practically should be able to walk into the White House press room and say, what WTF is going on with our food? And why are there 10 coincidences going on at once about all these food shortages? And why is it that all the celebrities and all the politicians and Bill Gates, all these rich people, are pushing fake food on us? Oh, it works out perfectly. And it's not just about money. It's about control. Everyone's like, oh, it's about money. Bill Gates is going to make a lot of money from Beyond Meat and Beyond Eggs and all this other nonsense. It's about control. They don't care about money. That's what people miss the point with. They don't care about piles and piles of money. They care about control of the people. And that's what all these governments are working towards doing. And they are doing it. And they're getting away with it. And Bill Gates, again, anyone suspicious? Got his hands in a lot of stuff that's going on. A lot of things going on at once. The climate, the you-know-what that just occurred, right? Beyond Meats, Beyond Eggs. He owns all the farmland. I mean, how many things can we go through where you could point at this guy, right? And like I've said before, when he got smashed with a pie in the face, I think his hatred for society grew more and more because this guy is as wicked as they get. I thank you guys for being here. Hope to see you on the website. Thanks to Teresa again for sharing that article. It really brought me into a rant, but I mean, What more do you need to say when you see this stuff happening with our supply chain, and then we see the bird flu killing of the chickens, and now egg prices at $12 for a dozen eggs, and egg shortages, and then you see that Bill Gates is invested in chickenless eggs, and they're pushing chickenless eggs, which not many people had heard about. I wasn't aware of chickenless eggs. I didn't really give it much thought, but it wasn't something that I didn't see this article 10 years ago, and I wasn't aware that, oh, right, in addition to getting rid of cattle and all this stuff, because they haven't really talked about it, oh, we're also going to get rid of eggs. Right? Because they probably would assume, wait a minute, chicken's not really, we can't convince people that chicken's bad for them, so let's just kill all the chickens. And then say there's an egg shortage. And then say, we have the answer. It's fake eggs. Get ready for explosive diarrhea, everybody. Unbelievable. Thank you for being here. God bless all of you and your families.